Hey everybody, we're about 5 minutes out from the Chancellor coming in to start off our meeting. We'll be getting the Chancellor for the first 15 minutes, and then from there we'll go into our business portion. I do have the advisory agenda up here, and I'll show it periodically as we proceed. Everybody should have gotten it by now. So, yeah, well, happy Friday, everybody. I don't know where you're at. It's a sunny but cold day in Menominee. Certainly spring is showing up, and I think we're all really excited for new life, and we're excited for everybody to cross the line. Today officially being the last day of classes, and tomorrow graduation in a little bit of a, well, not a little bit, a very different way than we've ever done before. So anyways, welcome all. Just a couple, and I'll repeat this probably a couple times. In these environments, there is a certain level of control of how things work as far as the communication. I'm very much about full audio and video. I found that during the last several weeks, we can actually communicate well when we're using audio and video in these environments. The one instance is where you have a poor internet connection. That makes it a little challenging. I think I've met everybody, those people that have pets and kids. I've met the kids, I've met the pets, and generally speaking, I think everybody's accepted and been patient with it. Maybe through all this, our patience is getting better. I think at the very least, maybe we're slowing down a little bit, though it's hard to believe it's been such a blur since all this went on. Anyways, I digress a little bit, as many of you know that I do. We'll hear some more of these stories about how we fared a little bit later in our business portion. So looking at the time, a couple more minutes. I see the Chancellor is in the room, and we'll start promptly at 9:30, Chancellor, and I will ask you to give us a word. So for the moment, I'm just going to step out, and then I'll step back in and we'll begin. All right. According to my clock, it is 9:30, so why don't we go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to the biannual advisory meeting for the master's and the bachelor's degree in information and communication technology. According to our agenda, our first 15 minutes will be with our Chancellor, Chancellor Frank, giving a few words. So, Chancellor, mic up, camera on. Welcome.
Hi, Evan. Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you for allowing me to join you for a few minutes. I, of course, wish this was in person, but I think that's something that we're finding ourselves saying quite often these days. And so, first of all, my thanks to all of you for what you do to support our programs at Stout. Serving as members of advisory boards is incredibly important to helping us to think about curriculum, outreach, and the best path forward for our students, and the collaboration with our faculty and staff and students is something that we do that I believe other institutions don't do as well as we do. So thank you. Thank you so much for your support. And so, as I think most of you know, I'm fairly new to Stout. I was on the ground for 1 week and then the world changed. And so I've gotten to know this institution this way, really. And as Evan said before the meeting began, it's caused us to interact in different ways, and to get to know each other in new ways, and to act and intersect and in challenging times, but to think in an innovative way towards a pathway through that. I know that these programs are particularly important to the thinking at our institution. The faculty and staff in these programs have been leaders as we've been navigating the last 2 months, and I believe will remain so as we continue to find our pathway through this and emerge a stronger institution, but it will be a different institution on the other side of this. I think everybody will. I don't think higher education will ever look exactly the same as it did before we entered into this period. And in some ways, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's challenged us to think about, again, how we communicate, how we deliver the education, the programs we build, and as Brian will talk about, I'm sure, the new sort of, employment opportunities, job opportunities that are beginning to emerge due to what we're in right now. It is a challenging time for the institution. I don't want to sort of enter a negative space when I talk a little bit about this, but it's also our reality. And I think advisory board members need to be aware of it. I'm sure you've been watching in the news some of the updates on the UW system. This has been, in terms of a financial impact on all of our institutions, pretty significant. At Stout, right now, we're at about $6 million in lost revenue and expenses just related to what has been going on for the last 2 months. I anticipate by the time we're through summer, we'll be looking at approximately $7 million. As you might imagine, the expenses and the lost revenue, depending on what happens month to month, are dynamic, and so we continue to track that very carefully. We did receive some federal funding through the third stimulus package, the CARES Act. About $5 million came to Stout. Half of that money, approximately $2.5 million, goes to support students in the form of emergency aid. It goes directly to students who have been impacted by COVID-19 in terms of their learning experience and their life experiences. It does not go to new students. And so we are managing that through the Dean of Students office. In addition to that money, at the beginning of this process, we started an emergency grant fund for students. Some students are not eligible for CARES funding, and so that gives us an alternative to help support some of our other students with small grants who are facing some challenges during this period. The other half of that money, $2.5 million, again, we have about a $6 to $7 million expense and lost revenue gap, goes to help fill that gap. Some of that money will be used this summer to help our faculty prepare for fall. Our faculty are off contract, many of them, in another week. And so we will need to have them engaged in helping us to plan for what we're calling a modified normal in the fall. We are planning to be back face-to-face in some capacity. That's what we're planning and hoping for. But as we all know, there's 3 months between now and the start of the semester, and things could change, and we may have to pivot again. But we have to take a path forward through this. So we are planning for that modified normal. And as you might imagine, that's a big undertaking. It's a complex undertaking to close an institution, at least to a mostly locked campus. We remain open, but of course our campus operations changed dramatically as we went into a mostly locked campus mode and moved students off campus. It's equally complex to reopen an institution, especially when we're facing all of the unknowns that we're facing right now. So we have a core recovery team that has leaders that are managing subgroups all across campus. And that modified normal in terms of the academic space means that we have to do a density analysis of all of our rooms, thinking about how many people we can actually have in rooms based on best practices in terms of social distancing. It means that every single one of our classes will have some sort of virtual component because we're simply not going to be able to have all students in one space at the same time. So we're going to have to think in creative ways about how we deliver our courses. And as you might imagine, this ranges dramatically between this type of program. And I was just talking to a choral director, and you can imagine the challenges there, and they are looking towards their national organizations for some support in terms of how to think about making music and teaching music in the coming semester. So academics is one piece, a very large piece of that puzzle, but we have a group working on residence life. We have a group working on dining. We have a group working on technological needs. We have a group working on general health and safety across campus, and so on. So as we plan for fall, we will keep our stakeholders apprised of where we are. The system has indicated that it will make an announcement regarding fall operations no later than July 15th, and each campus is planning accordingly in the present moment for that point in time. So challenging times indeed, but I'm confident that at Stout, you know, we're a scrappy bunch here, and we think in innovative and creative ways, and we tackle the problems in front of us, and that's what we train our students to do. And so we will get through this. It will be a challenge. We are facing difficulties and struggles, and you probably read about the furloughs that have already started at the institution and will continue through the next academic year. But as I've said many times already, we'll find our pathway through this and emerge on the other side. So that's where we are. That's what we're working on. And again, thank you all so much for your time and investment in the institution. And I'll just pause and see if there's any questions.
I know it's early in the morning, kind of. Any questions for the Chancellor? Yeah, good point, Chris. Yeah, that's true.
And Mark, regarding my cats, yes, you do see the cat stand in the background. They're not fans of these meetings. I think the voices are not their favorite thing coming in and out of the computer, but there's 3 of them, and they've made a few cameos in the last few weeks.
Well, why don't we try this in? Yeah, get distracted by things on the screen here. Chancellor, if you would just take a few moments. I mean, you certainly have jumped fully into your role at UW Stout, and it's kind of like you're drinking from the fire hydrant, you know, from day one. Let's backtrack just a little bit. Who are you? Where do you come from? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not working?
Oh, thanks, Evan. You know, I came most recently from Central Washington University, where I was provost and vice president. My background's in English, all the way through, from my undergraduate degree through my PhD. So the question that has come up quite often is, why are you at a polytechnic? And I have to say that coming from the position of the humanities and looking at the work of a polytechnic and thinking about what we do in terms of our placement of students and our training of students, this is the philosophy that has guided my professional work from the very beginning and trying to think in terms of the values of the humanities, and convince larger stakeholder groups about the work that we do that is valuable. I think an institution like Stout helps us to make that argument. And so I really just became so connected and passionate about the way we thought about students and student success at Stout that it was the perfect fit for me. I grew up in Colorado, and my first professional position in academia was at Colorado State University Pueblo. I had gone all over the place for school, to Maine and to the Pacific Northwest, University of Washington. But I was able to go home for my first academic appointment and was there for 10 years at CSU Pueblo. And then really each move that I've made among institutions has been because of development in administrative roles. And in most cases, to move up, you have to move out. And so that has been that process as I've just become more and more attached to administration, to higher ed administration and the work that we do across systems. That's what's fascinating to me. So coming to Stout was really truly something that I was so excited about, and just adore this institution. In my spare time, I like to be outside as much as possible. So as the weather's changing and getting better, I like to run, I like to bike, I like to be outside and moving as much as I possibly can, because we do so much of this in our world, which is sitting and talking. So thanks for asking, Evan. I appreciate that. Well,
you're very welcome. Well, Chancellor, enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate you dropping in and giving our advisory members an opportunity to meet you and just to kind of hear what's going on right now.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to drop in this afternoon to hear some of the student work briefly. Oh, yes. So it's been a pleasure. And if I can do anything for any of you in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. See you later. All right, folks, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our agenda right now. I'm sharing my screen as I've gotten quite good at doing this. So our agenda today, and I would say the only part of this that is really hard and fast will be this afternoon as we get into our capstone presentations. And of course, as that has been for those of you that have been in this advisory meeting for a while, will be final solution presentations of our consulting groups in the enterprise technology capstone course. So business meeting this morning. Review of meeting minutes. Basically, I'll give you that right now. We met in December, of course, very different time. The world has changed a lot. We focused mostly on the potential revision of the MS-ICT program, and a large part of what we're doing today is going to be follow-up to continue with that. The Plan B response, I think it's worthwhile for you folks, members of our advisory board, to kind of hear what has gone on. And there's enough individuals in this room that have been experiencing this on campus live with our students that I think I'm going to ask for some testimonies in that as well. Brian Bartz is here to talk from Career Services about our graduates. Dr. Xavier Knight, he's going to talk about a research angle that he's looking for some feedback and support. Sarah Anger will be looking at program numbers. I'll give a brief update on the MS, or not the MS, but the BS-ICT program as it stands right now. Then finally, the rest of our business will be an interaction with Dr. Laura Reisinger in what she has discovered to this point in her cause to determine whether or not the MS-ICT program should be adjusted. And of course, the rest of this is on your agenda, and you can take a look at this yourself. All right. So that next item up there, I'm not going to go into the review of the minutes at this point, because again, it was very focused on a starting point with the MS-ICT program revision, but I do want to talk about Stout's Plan B response for the MS or the BS and the MS-ICT programs. And I'm just looking at the clock here to make sure that I don't talk too long about that. Okay, so from my perspective, as an instructor, as a department chair, as a program director, it in some cases for the ICT programs and others within the communication technologies department, it has been our opportunity to really shine. We have been invested in the online teaching and learning space for quite some time. Matter of fact, that's why we exist today. When the word was given that we were going to be right around spring break, when we were told that, yeah, we're not going to come back to normal operations for 2 weeks, and then it turned into the rest of the semester, and then it turned into the semester in summer, and now it's morphed into maybe we're going to be back in the fall. We are well suited to engage this. And it's a credit to the professionals that we have in our department. We've got some, I would say, some of the very best online teaching and learning professionals on the planet. And we believe in that. We know that effective learning experiences can occur in this environment. Matter of fact, today, as those of you who are going to stick around see the capstone final presentations as we had consulting groups engaging a client, you're going to see that this works. And it isn't the first time we've done this. We've been doing this for quite some time. I'm not going to tell you that this hasn't, in a greater sense, been damaging. I think it has. It's one thing to be effective as an online teaching professional. It's another thing for a student who chose, at least initially, to be on campus, to be in those environments. And I think there are a number of instructors in here that could speak to that. So I like a number of the people that are either directly in ICT or supportive ICT to speak up, and I know who you are. So Chris Isaacson, I see your smiley, happy face there. I'd like you just to, if you would, for a bit, just kind of spin your experience, and I'll ask for a few other people as well. What do you got to say, Chris?
I guess what are you looking for as far as like how the teaching has shifted, or?
Well, just your experience. I think I probably gave the overview as far in a general sense of we ICT and DMT and a variety of other programs, we're suited for this.
We are suited for this.
Yes.
That was, I think, one of my observation from the courses that I teach is, I think in some cases the instructors within the ICT and DMT where I'm out of are dealing with this better than some of our students. Our classes, for those of them that are campus-based, even though most of them are what we refer to as hybrid, where we meet once a week for a couple of hours, and then it's very self-directed learning, you would think that they would be more prepared. But in my case, I've found myself fielding a lot more emails, and these are not necessarily the freaked out type of emails as far as, you know, things in their life are going on. I've had a few of those too, but it's just all of the questions and stuff. And you realize all of the contact points that you have, even though you meet a short period of time. I've also realized for the online classes that at the very beginning, I had to shift my own thinking. It's like, okay, our teaching's not changing. Not really. But the lives of our students have completely, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Michelle's comment, that their lives have shifted completely, because now many of them are adult learners. They are now juggling jobs and homeschooling of kids in many cases, as well as trying to maintain a time or a schedule to do their own learning. So I've had to become more, sorry, somebody's joining. I've had to become more accommodating in that, and I'm okay with that. It's been a semester, or at least second half of semester, of adaptability and flexibility. So those are my few words, Evan.
All right, Chris, thank you. I appreciate that. We've got a few other teaching and learning pros in here as well. If you'd like to jump in and kind of give a few words, that would be just fine. Or,
Hey, Evan,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm a lot of you folks know this. I'm the business administration program director. It's a pretty large program on campus, and for the folks in my department, because we serve so many other programs on campus, we serve over 20 programs. We've been fortunate in that a lot of our faculty have already taught online in the past or have been currently teaching online. Actually, every semester, I only teach one face-to-face class, and everything else is online. But we do have some faculty who've never taught online before, and so it's been an adjustment for them, and certainly for our students. But as we finish, essentially finishing up classes today, I think there's been a pretty good adjustment by, I would say, 90% of faculty and students. But in my role as program director, I get a lot of email every day from students across the program who don't want online only. They came to campus to be on campus, like Chris and you have mentioned. So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge I think that we're overcoming. But we all definitely hope to be meeting face to face in the fall.
Thank you, Mark. That it is good to hear those stories. I mean, one of the things about a university campus is that we exist in our own worlds at times, so we don't entirely know what's going on in other areas. We are listening. We are trying to hear some news, but it is good to hear that, Mark. We really need to be good in this space. The way things are shaping up with what the Chancellor had mentioned with our economic shortfall, and I don't want to talk too long about what the Board of Regents received yesterday as a recommendation from the president of the UW system, but things are going to be changing, and it'll be very interesting to see. It's certainly a different time. Anybody else that's been in the classroom that would like to make some comments about observations? And if not, we'll look to transition into the next part of our agenda.
Hey, Evan, this is Cami. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead, Cami.
Okay. I just wanted to number one, echo what Chris said. We've seen a lot of struggles with some of our students that definitely prefer the face-to-face interactions. From my perspective, just coming from the industry into the teaching and learning space, I know that this is a very challenging and difficult time for a lot of our students and instructors, especially in the realm that we're in. I want to say that I know it was kind of like a forced way to be into the online space, but coming from a background of working for global technology companies, this was my everyday life, and it was very hard to get used to. So I'm hoping that this only lasts a semester, but I do think that it's a really great introduction. I say great in a kind of a weird sense, but I think it's a great introduction to some of the students to get this learning, get this type of interaction with people. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's hard. But especially in the ICT realm where we're at, this might be a reality for them when they go out into their careers, where they're conducting a lot of their business over these types of modes. So, but again, echoing what Chris said, we've definitely seen our challenges with our students that are on campus that do prefer that face-to-face, and trying to find creative ways to make it so it's like they're on their phone, on their Snapchat, on their Facebook, because we know they're using technology today. We just need to figure out ways, continuing ways on how we can engage them that way as well. Not saying we need to use Facebook or Snapchat, but just to make it a little bit creative and more fun for them.
Hey, Evan. This is Bob McLean.
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
I can maybe share some thoughts from the observations I've made of my two children. One that's finishing up her freshman year at Marquette University today, and my son who's a freshman in high school. And I echo what Cammie just said, that it's been a very challenging transition for both of them. I think one thing that I would recommend from a teacher's perspective is, don't discount or minimize that one-on-one interaction with students. That's certainly the biggest thing that I think both of my kids are missing from being on campus or in the classroom, is that one-on-one time that you get from your instructor. That now has to be done many times, whether it's a video conference, and many times it's been difficult for both of them to get one-on-one time with their instructors. But much of that interaction has been through either chats or email, which is completely different. It's just a different experience, as Cammie said. But I think there's also, with all of this, an emotional impact that needs to be considered as well. So I just wanted to share that from my kids' perspective.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. At this point, I'm kind of, for me, it's a little bit difficult I am a routine person and a habitual person. Being able to say, all right, this is how our advisory goes because it's the last Friday in the semester. I'm feeling like there's a pull for me to maybe slow down a bit as far as what this time has been for us. So we've told you essentially what it's been like here. Bob shared about his kids, what their experience is. I'm kind of curious about some of what you folks have witnessed. What is it like in industry right now? What is it like to do business? I'm sure it's similar this way, but other than watching the news or watching the stock market drop and all those indicators that point to something isn't normal, I'd like to hear some stories if you wouldn't mind sharing some.
Hey, Evan.
Go ahead, Tim.
Hi, Tim Nagel. Couple things, and I'm at a bank supporting the technology groups, the analytics teams, the security teams. So one thought, if UW Stout is comfortable with and has been comfortable with distance learning for quite some time, which may be based in part on the student body, some of the people that would rather not be on campus or can't be on campus, or just your geographic location. If that's your strength, and everybody now either in college, university, or in the workplace, which is me, I'm home. If everybody is now remote, and things may adjust more in favor of remote, either because of lessons learned from this or because people got used to it and it actually turned out to be not so bad, especially in the tech space. I mean, if you're administering a database, you could be sitting anywhere. So over the summer, it would be interesting to kind of keep an eye on industry as it wrestles with how do we return? Do we return all the way to where we were? Is this a way to allow for more, remote workers where appropriate? Because we've had to do it now for probably months, and it's actually not so bad. And there may be additional things like, workplace, I won't say performance, but sort of metrics, because people aren't in the office, so you can't, get quite the same sense of how they're doing. So there's some privacy issues regarding, monitoring employee activity, performance. We've had some security issues, not specific to any one employee, but generally people are used to working in the workplace, so they know how to treat sensitive information. Now they're not. They're at home, which is unfamiliar for them. The same rules apply. We just have to remind them of that. And the same thing with our partners. So, for us at the bank, it's people have to work remotely. I think I saw for the first couple of weeks, people trying to get their bearings, actually. My email went down 50%, and I think it's because people are trying to figure out how do we juggle kids and the household requirements and other issues, but they're adjusting now. So I don't know what the new normal is, and I almost hate to use that phrase because it's overused, but is that something that Stella can take advantage of and basically say to the students, I get it, you'd rather be on campus, that's part of the college experience, but oh, by the way, when you get out of here, you're training to be technologists. And I got news for you, the technology world is changing too, to go more virtual, partly because the customer base, to the extent that industry has one, is virtual as well. I mean, at the bank, we're emphasizing digital. We were before, now we have to do it even more. And then on the analytics side, they're busier than ever because maybe it's not the same kind of analytics they were doing, but it's still, people need to be smart within the bank about what's happening, what's changing, what the trends are. And it's sort of like being a bankruptcy lawyer. If things are bad, bankruptcies are up. If things are, or I'm sorry, a commercial lending lawyer, because there's always some sort of transaction. It's always happening. People are buying or selling. That keeps you busy. The same thing in the technology and the analytics space. I can't imagine demand has gone down. In fact, I know at the bank it's gone up because we've had to, address bandwidth problems and things like that. So it may be that, to the extent we can help the students adjust, if industry is going more remote and distributed anyway with their people, maybe it's sort of like, okay, get used to it because this is what your job is going to look like anyway. So maybe I'm missing the boat, but I know we've had to adjust at the bank.
Thank you for sharing, Tim. Lots of thoughts come up when I hear what you had to say. And certainly in our case, with what our system is responding to, or actually I would say reacting to, because I don't think we've been really good at being thoughtful as to what we should be. Kind of now the gun is up against the temple, and it's like, all right, you need to be. It's amazing. It's amazing how creative people can get when things get tough. That is for certain. Folks, as this semester has been, how do we pivot and go different directions when something presents themselves? We need to do that right now because of circumstances beyond our control. We're gonna kind of flip-flop our agenda just a little bit. My apologies to those people that had expectations relative to what it is. We're still going to cover those things, but Dr. Laura Reisinger is going to jump in here now, and we're going to spend some time with what she wanted to discuss related to the proposed, it's the examination of the MS-ICT program. Yeah, exactly, Chris. We're good at that now. We're getting tough. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. Laura, you can start talking. You're on.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, that was a great transition. I'm currently dealing with some incredibly painful back issues. I'm late joining the meeting because I actually could get into the doctor this morning, and they can get me into a PT appointment at 11. So I have couldn't have had worse timing on this, but I absolutely can't take another couple of days of this. So I will make this short. I think a plan B will kind of come into place. I'm going to just quickly share my screen to show you, I believe, my PowerPoint. So again, this is really truncated, and my apologies to everyone. I think unless there's a better idea out there, I will do a longer version. But as I come through, and I think this was mentioned, right, I did some background work into some current conditions. I've attended some webinars, and certainly I think it was just mentioned that yesterday, Ray Cross asking for campuses to identify their most promising programs, or a more negative way of saying that is identifying their least promising programs. And they're looking for, right, things to be kind of unique. So a couple of things that we were going to try to cover is, what's this program title? I again did, we kind of have some options of either keeping it the same. Byron Anderson had suggested perhaps information technology leadership. We had marketing run some numbers on it. And their bottom line was kind of saying that we are the only of all the top competing universities using that word communication in our title. And so while this could be seen as a differentiator, it could potentially confuse. But I think differentiator is a little bit of where I'm heading on this name change. We've also got, this ICT is quite a global word. It's not as easily seen here. It's connected with the UN, with their sustainable goals. So it's really quite a global connection. And Evan and I met with kind of the two driving forces at SVA Consulting in Madison. They're members on our board, and their firm is not only in and of itself very forward thinking, but they represent lots of businesses that they do consulting with. And Brian is quoted as saying is that internal IT department's going to be gone in 10 years. So my thoughts is that I don't want to go to something that's going away. I want to head to what's going to be in the future, and changing our program name to something with information technology may not be the best, but I don't want to, so I don't want to change it and confuse people, but I don't want to change it and be like every other campus that has an IT program. Ours is ICT, and I think that I do, as the marketing had said, right, it implies that we are offering a different curriculum, and I absolutely would like to imply that we are offering that different curriculum. So again, some things that I think I'll skip over here. I think it's going to be delivered online. That's the good news. I think there's some small things that we can do. What I was going to spend the majority of my time was talking about the outcomes for the program, right? What outcome best positions our graduate? There are quotes talking about needing, right, to drive change, that we are needing. This is from a book of Humanity Works on these skills. It's about persuasion, cognitive flexibility, data sense. That's also echoed in our interviews with Brian and John, talking about needing non-perishable skills like negotiation, persuasiveness, conducting research. They need to be able to lead people from a growth mindset. They need to understand this dimensionality of data. I'm not doing, these are our current outcomes. And I think what I'm planning right now is that I will, unless there's some other great ideas, and I'm certainly open to that I would do a recording of this, fleshing it out some more and giving you a chance to respond to me on any program outcome changes. I think we need to slightly alter these. I think we need to add in some things about data, whether it's dimensionality of data, data sense, something with data. I think we need to up a little bit in the presentation, negotiation, persuasion kinds of skills. And so based on that, then I want to spend the entire summer really looking at all of our core courses and trying to decide, is there room? Can we alter some information in them? Do we need a new course? Can we just present and tweak each of them to give it a fresher, a more contemporary kind of approach? That's a 5-minute of what I really had planned for 40. I'm open to any thoughts and suggestions that are out there. And I should check some of the comments here. Let me see. Right. So yeah, James, we've talked too about this whole, dimensions of data analytics. I think we're missing. I think we need more of that. Certainly that came from several sources. So I certainly was able to kind of triangulate the research that I was doing and came back upon things like persuasiveness, negotiation, that whole data sense. Yep, we've been discussing that. Right, so marketing, you know, when you look at what they gave us, and I can pull that back up, marketing is going to tell you that IT is where the Google searches are at. However, I am more concerned than ever with Ray Cross's comments that I do not want to be where everybody else is at. So when we look at this was their research. If you searched for information technology leadership, it was very low. ITM, which is the being currently done by the extension, and so that's also very low. Information technology management, which is also low. And so the highest one recorded was actually the IT, which, like I said, every campus has that degree, and I'm just worried about changing my name to be a part of the big group. I think that I really want to be that differentiator, and that we can focus on our message in other ways to make sure we aren't confusing students or missing the marketing boat for that. The MS program is 30 credits. 15 are in core courses, and 15 they're allowed to pick and choose from their emphasis. And so I think I want to keep that flexibility. That's still really good feedback that we're hearing from the students. But it may be that I need to switch that into 18 and 12. I might have to add one more core course. I'm thinking of a little stronger sequencing that can create some more kind of cohort and student relationship building throughout their work in the program. Right. So right now, when we look at who we're targeting, we're targeting people that are really mid-career. They've been working and they're looking for that next step, which generally leads into kind of more supervisory, mid-management kinds of levels. And so, with the exception of maybe one that I can think of, everybody is currently employed and looking for that promotion and that next step. Have I looked at other Polytechnic peers? I should, to kind of look at titles. That's kind of what the marketing did. And most of it is either computer science or it's IT is the bulk of that. Let me see. What kind of job titles? I'd have to go in and look, but for most of them, and I'm sorry, I don't have that on the top of my head on what their job titles are. Right.
I can interject there just a little bit.
Sure.
We actually have some individuals in here. I'm thinking of Kurt Fawcett in particular. When Kurt came back to school, actually, Kurt, you're here. Why don't you kind of speak to that? I mean, you certainly know who you are, and you know the cohort that you came in with.
Yeah, I would say I don't have a lot of insight into what the other students that were during my cohort were what jobs they were doing, but almost all of them were in pre-existing job areas, including myself. I came back to it just to learn some different soft skills and use the flexibility of the program. So I don't know if I necessarily could put a handle on what job titles are, but I think in general, what I was seeing is people were using it to enhance their career skills, to either move up into their within their company or into different locations.
Yeah, you know, just thinking about my experience with the master's program over the years, a lot of the people that I've interacted with usually were coming in not because they needed some specific technical insight. You know, Laura and I certainly have had plenty of conversations about the difference between the ICT bachelor's program and also the master's program. And the expectation that we're going to add substantial specific technical skill at a master's level, it really, quite honestly, that there are programs like that, but I don't think that's who our audience has been, and I don't think that's what we want. Really, anybody that comes from an IT or ICT related background and they're going into a master's, that's kind of a rare bird in some cases. They're probably looking to get into more of the soft skills, leading people, managing teams, versus being a very specific technical focus within an organization. At least that's what's my impression, and that's why the whole notion of should we change the name from ICT to maybe something like IT leadership, or something in the realm of how do you bring everything together, all these pieces to strategize, to inspire people to come together and create solutions for organizations.
I think that's the message Evan and I heard too, as we were out talking to some of these business partners in industry, is that this segregation is going away. That their clients used to all come out of the IT department, and now they're coming from everywhere. It's just part of how business is being done. And so I definitely heard them say it is not the technology. It's more about the process and the communicating. Even more reason to keep that C word in the title for that. Right. I don't think, I totally agree, like to what James is saying. I don't think we can really focus on that technical aspect. I think it needs to be bigger and more about the process. Courses that are already there on technology adoption and implication. That's just good qualitative research, regardless of the technology that you're looking to analyze its effects in terms of that adoption. There was a comment in the chat about perhaps a subcommittee that could meet with me to flesh this out more. I would love that. I think that's a great plan B. I would want all of the core course teachers. Chris was in on that, but that would also include Dr. Xavier Knight and myself, and I think James was liking that, so I take that as a yes. Careful of those little thumbs up there, James. And so I would certainly love to see if anybody else is interested in meeting. It would be sooner rather than later, so that I can spend my summer with some great guidance and direction on revising and updating all of the program to start it through the channels in the fall. So if anybody's interested, they can pop it in the chat line, or they can certainly reach out to Evan or myself. Like I said, I would, Chris had the great idea. I see James on there, and Xavier also gets in on that as well. Again, I really couldn't have been at a more worse time for this. So, okay, Kurt's in, great.
Yeah, we're not going to say another word until everybody volunteers.
There you go, right? That pause. We can wait.
So, as I'm thinking about this, one of the things that I did this morning, probably similar to what you did, Laura, maybe you did this yesterday, is I read that full 7-pager that came, that was the executive summary of the Regents meeting. Really, for us at this point, the need for us to literally change or to justify the uniqueness of what we do is going to be very, very important. It's right now, it's so fresh, I think, in all of our minds since this was announced. I think even the Board of Regents has been, I would say, probably as befuddled with all the events as anybody else. But again, they're the ones that have the authority to make something happen. The time is now. I don't want to be a negative in this case, but we are going to be examined. We're going to be asked if we are actually reasonable to continue on in what we do. I think a number of us in here probably recognize that we've needed to make substantial changes, years back. Now we're going to get the opportunity because we're behind the 8 ball. There's no choice. Adapt or die. I say that tongue in cheek, but it literally is that. There will be those people that rise to the occasion, have a new way to operate, and are successful, because there's still a need for learning, and there's still a need for leadership in the area of business and business related to the functionality of it, like the support from IT and ICT type systems and such. So anyways, hey Laura,
Yeah,
I wanted to ask. Go ahead.
And I'm going to jump in. Sorry. I see Ben's got a comment about the Twin Cities at the U of M. And again, that's part of it. You're absolutely right. I have looked at it. It's this management of technology. It's, again, very similarly based to that extension program of information technology management. And again, it's what I wanted to stay away from. I can't replicate what they're doing. They've got a whole institute happening there. And again, it's back to that ICT that with it being global, with it having, kind of a little different label to it, might be some of what we can help people, just be enough to differentiate us in that space. Yep. So I'm that's kind of where I'm at, as I'm saying, I don't think we should change the name. I think we want to keep it unique as ICT. And I think what we need to do, since some of the courses haven't really been looked at since 2011, I think they need that freshening up and a look to keep this dynamic and forward-looking and process-oriented for our students. I have overtaken this agenda, and I'm again apologizing for that. I've got on my list Kurt Fawcett, Cami Peterson, Kristen Isaacson, James Falkowski, and Xavier Knight. Jason Schenzel has come in terms of the subcommittee. And so I will be getting something out to you probably next week, and we will look to have further discussion on this very important topic. Thank you, everyone.
All right, based on that, it looks like you might be stepping out now, Laura?
Yes, I will be heading to my next appointment and praying for some pain relief.
All right,
thanks.
Laura. Hang in there.
Thanks.
All right, well, I appreciate, it's really nice to see you folks willing to step up and assist in this. That kind of makes me feel good that we are valued. It's these days, it's, what we do, we know the results we get, but at times I feel like, I don't know, it's one of those 80s movies where you feel like, thank you, may I have another one, as you're getting paddled for doing good things. So I appreciate that. And again, just following up on that, if you'd like to be able to, if you'd like to participate with this, it'll probably be in this venue, which makes it, certainly a lot easier than, getting ready in the morning, jumping in the car and going 3 hours. So it'll probably be just fine. I'm going to share the agenda a second, and I think we're going to transition to the next step. Hey, Michelle, I know you want to get just a little bit of time in here. If you got about a 5-minute spiel, because we don't have you on the agenda, will that work for you?
Sure, happy to step in. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Am I able to share my screen?
You are.
All right, thank you. I just have a couple of slides I wanted to share with the group.
By the way, Michelle works with our foundation office. Those are, of course, in these days, gosh, pretty important. So anyways, Michelle, go ahead.
I joked that tongue in cheek that we're very popular these days on campus, but I just wanted to share a few things with the group. As I think you guys have heard me talk about the campaign, I should confirm. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so it's sort of the yin and yang at the foundation right now. We are ending our first major campaign that was initially a $35 million goal. I'm happy to say it's over 42 million right now. That includes a lot of restricted funds, so they're for specific programs or projects across campus. And some of for that 42 million is also an estate give, so it's not as if the foundation is sitting on all this new money today. But it does set up Stout for some great opportunity in the future. My colleagues and I at the foundation are really focused on a few different priorities right now. In relation to what Chancellor Frank mentioned earlier and our preparation for fall, we're looking to upgrade the technology in several classrooms to enable synchronous learning, where perhaps half of the students enrolled in a class may attend in person and the other half may receive the same instruction, same time, virtually. And so we're looking at what our classrooms need in terms of technology to make that happen. And so if anyone has feedback on that or would like to learn more, please let me know. You may be familiar with student emergency funds. I know these are happening in many different campuses. Actually, Chancellor Frank started the Student Emergency Fund at Stout. And so this was established to help students who are facing a financial challenge. Perhaps they had a campus job that is no longer taking place, and yet they still have obligations for rent or other things. So students may apply for up to $500 in financial assistance. And those there's some federal dollars that are now available for that, but the Student Emergency Fund helps students, any of our students. And so that we've had some great donations from faculty and staff, as well as alumni interested in supporting students. And then we're also looking at scholarships and how we can help students in making sure that they can complete their degrees on time, that they can, finish this commitment they've started and support them along the way. So in a nutshell, that's what we're working on now. I'll put my email address in the chat. If anyone would like to follow up with questions or suggestions about any of these things, or would like more information, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk with you or set up another time.
All right, very good, Michelle. Thank you so much. Again, at this certainly in this season, we're needing support on many different levels. What that all looks like, we don't really know, but we are doing our best to continue forward with the idea that we are valuable yet and we can continue our business. All right, moving on the agenda here, the next one up here is Brian Bartz. Brian Bartz is the director of our Career Services Center. On your agenda, you will see that today we were looking, this actually came from our last meeting. People wanted to get some insight into where our graduates go and some of the numbers. So Brian knows that. So Brian, it's your show. Go ahead and
all right.
Let's hear some good news.
Sounds great. Thank you, Evan. I'm going to share my screen here. So let me make sure I get that all set up here so we can see what we're looking at. Okay, you should be seeing my riveting and engaging PowerPoint presentation. For those of you who do not know me, sarcasm is my second language sometimes. So happy Friday, glad to see the sun is out. I just received a message that it might snow tomorrow, so yay. Anyway, on to some positive language here. The career outcomes for the ICT program have always been strong, and I believe that that's because of the collaborative nature of our faculty with industry, support partners. Many of you on the call today really do impact these numbers. And so when I share this, a lot of time the quote unquote credit goes to career services, when in fact I believe it's the campus as a whole. So I just got a PowerPoint here with some things that I'd like to just kind of share, open to questions and so forth. Feel free to put them in the chat and we'll go from there or just jump in. So the first and foremost is our career outcomes for the class of 18-19. The outcomes have jumped again, 98.8% of our graduates from those 3 academic terms were reported as employed, continuing or planning to continue their education, serving in the military, or in a service-related program. It is important to note, because I know we have kind of a combined group here today, that this is exclusively the undergraduate program. We do not report on the master's programs for many reasons, and several of them were shared here today. For those of you who are maybe not familiar with what we do in career services, I thought it might just be helpful to kind of share a little bit about who we are. Our mission in career services and why we exist is to not just go into the career outcomes of our graduates, but really to educate them to make good decisions. So education, engaging with them, and empowering them. I think it is important to know that when it comes to career development, the identity of the campus is really impacted by career development. And a lot of times the students that we receive at Stout are first generation college students, or those students who may have transferred from another institution. And so the empowering part of our mission statement is really critical, because we know that it can have a huge impact on an individual's confidence in understanding why they're going to college, what they're trying to achieve, and to go from there. And so our mission is we feel critical to have that as a part of it. I did want to share just some brief highlights from the Career Services Office, just so that you know kind of the scope of what we do and what we're accomplishing. As mentioned, the outcomes rate has risen again, 5th consecutive year. Since 2014-15, it has gone up. This year in particular, I'm excited to announce that the salaries for our graduates, the average salary jumped over $4,000 from $44,000 last year to $48,000 this year, which I think is an indicator of the value that industry is placing on the knowledge and the skills that our graduates are providing. Personally, in our office, we've had the opportunity to be recipients of 2 national awards in the past 2 years, which I think is indicative of the scope of where we're focusing right now. Last year, we received the Co-op Student of the Year Award. This award was given to one of our packaging students. He was selected out of several hundred candidates across the country. This is pretty much the creme de la creme of co-op awards. It doesn't get much higher than this. And it really put us on the national stage in terms of awareness of what we're doing and how successful we are doing it. And then most recently this year, just a month or 2 ago, we received notification that one of the programs that we've been involved with is the Art and Design Week program. And it is an opportunity for students to have portfolio reviews and to meet with industry professionals. This program received the Outstanding Program of the Year by the Chevron Company, sponsored through the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So we're looking to celebrate that in about a month or 2 when we're actually allowed to say something publicly. But we're very excited about that as well. And then the last one is more home-based. At a state level, there's an organization out over in Green Bay that has been hosting something called the Internship Draft Day. And this has been held at Lambeau Field. And it's an event where students can interview with companies, and then the companies rank those students, and the top 2 students receive scholarships presented at Lambeau Field. And so last year we received second. This last fall we got second place, and the year before that we got first place. So we are doing pretty well as compared to some of the other students and schools that were participating. So just to kind of showcase the impact of what we're doing on a bit of a larger scale. And then specific to the ICT program, right here, I've got a snippet from our annual employment report, which was released in March, just before the pandemic hit. And I'm happy to report that in the College of Arts, Communications, and Social Sciences, the ICT program had 60 reported degrees. We received information from 44 of those degrees, and of that 44, 98% were employed or continuing education with a salary of $56,000. That is the second highest reported in the entire college. And so that's a point of pride in the work that our students are doing. I often get questions about where are they going? What are they doing? And so I put together here just a list of companies that were reported from the 1819 list. And so what you'll see here is the list of companies that were reported by our students. You can see it spans everything from healthcare to financial services to packaging and industry. We've got manufacturing companies. We've even had education, higher education, CVTC, I think was one that was on the list. And then I get a question about like, where are they going? This 1819 group of students reported employment in 4 different states: Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Montana. And so that just shows that, the kind of the scope of where our students are willing to go for positions. Moving on, because those are the outcomes after they graduate, I think it's important to also showcase what's happening while they're here. And so the ICT program and Evan and his faculty have really been supportive of our co-op program, and we look forward to partnering with the required experience that will be occurring soon. This past year in our co-op program, the ICT program had 9 enrolled students. Our co-ops are paid. They're required to be paid. They have several other requirements around them that give it the strength of a program. The wage was $13.60 an hour. The range was 12 to 17. And those 9 enrolled students were in Wisconsin and Minnesota. And you see below that the companies that they went to co-op with. You can see we've got hospitality, we've got higher education, we've got international companies, et cetera. And so our students are sought after anywhere they're going. And then the very last thing, for brevity's sake, is for those employer partners that are on the call today, and any students actually and any faculty that want to be aware of what's out there in terms of helping connect our students to employers. I just listed several strategies that may be beneficial to engage in or to think about. The first thing that we are enrolling this fall is a career services partnership program. And this is really aimed at companies that are looking to strategize their recruitment with UW Stout students over the course of a year. We have information that I'd be happy to share with you a little bit more in detail. You just have to email me and I'll share that with you. I don't need to go into the details today, but we are looking forward to that experience for our employer partners, something that I think moves our relationship to something that's more strategic and intentional. We have an employer in residence program, which has been hugely successful in the past year and a half. This is an opportunity, as the name would indicate, that employers are on campus engaging with our students in different ways. And because of the COVID impact, many of our employer in residence participants have simply adjusted to virtual presentations, and we're doing a lot of that. The co-op program, we released for those companies that are really looking to kind of partner in a unique way. We have a job shadow program that is taking place. This last winter was the first time we did it. It happened over the J term or the wind term, and that was a hugely successful program. And we're really looking forward to rolling that out in a larger capacity this fall, again, depending on what happens with the COVID. But that was a hugely successful collaboration with just over 30 companies in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Of course, we have an on-campus interview program and mock interviews as well. And then lastly, our events, career conferences, many of you are aware of that. We have 2 of those a year. And then we are also building out other events because of the relationship to the virtual nature of what we have to do. We are looking at Plan A and Plan B for the career conference this fall. We're also looking at other ways for employers to connect with students, potentially through industry-specific panels or events or other engagement opportunities. And then as Michelle kind of pointed a little earlier, these are several ways that we have found companies to have a really great success in building and strengthening relationships with the university. Many of these you're probably aware of, but sometimes for those of you who may not have thought about it, I can say and give examples of the strength of each one of these in relationship to recruitment. So you have presentations, student orgs, advisory boards, scholarships, other financial gifts. The capstone experience, for those of you involved in that, has been hugely successful, and then any networking presentations. So that's kind of my pitch in terms of the PowerPoint presentation and some of the data. Again, if you've got questions, I'm happy to jump in and talk a little bit about that. What I can tell you to pivot a little bit, I got a lot of questions from employers and from students about what we are doing to support students in the job search process right now. And what I can tell you is that we've developed a single page on our Stout Cloud website for all things COVID related. So we are directing a lot of students to that resource page. It has a ton of information on it. When students say that there's nobody hiring, I point them to this site and they can find over 10,000 companies that are still hiring across the United States. They'll get tips on different sites that have up-to-date information, as well as other areas of the COVID impact, such as mental health, how do I handle my co-op being rescinded, and different things like that. Just two more points, because I don't want to take too long in this presentation, but just an update on our current status of the summer co-op program. We do have nearly 400 students participating. Our numbers continue to go up each day. However, we do have about 52 companies that have indicated to us that they have canceled or altered their summer co-op progress or programs due to COVID-19. And as you would expect, some of those companies are canceling their program altogether, while others are delaying the start dates. And we do anticipate that having an impact on our co-op program. But for the most part, the flexibility that employers have been able to implement has really been encouraging to our students and also our office in continuing the partnerships that we have. And then lastly, to kind of touch on the conversation we had earlier about the importance of managing relationships with students that are now virtual and trying to show them a personal touch. A program that I released last week is that our career services counselors are now calling just about 250 students that have met with us over the course of this year for an appointment. If they've stopped in or if we've had a phone appointment, we are personally calling them just to connect with them and let them know that we're here for support. And we're finding that to be hugely successful in the engagement of our students and the appreciation that they have that we're thinking about them, even if it's not career related. I think that that's been a huge positive step for our office to take in connecting with students as this COVID and virtual world is continuing to evolve. So those are just some of the things that we're doing in career services. And again, I want to say thank you to Evan for having me here today and to give some time on this topic. I love talking about what we're doing at Stout. I think we're great. I am still picking my jaw up from the floor regarding that Board of Regents message that came out yesterday. But that being said, I think we can put ourselves in a really great place. So with that, if you've got any questions, I've been rambling for several minutes now, but I'll stay on the call for a little longer. Happy to answer any questions. I'll put my email address in there. And if employer partners, if you have openings, please shoot them our way and we'll get them out to our students through our career link system or other ways that we can find that to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Questions for Brian Burtz? Something that came to my mind as we were listening, Brian, was and thinking about the people who are in this meeting today. I'm looking at my notes over here. With those people that are in here, what is hiring looking like right now for business and industry? What is a quote job looking like? Or is there like nobody in here that's hiring anybody? I'm curious to hear from the perspective of our advisors out in industry.
So I can give you an update from HPE perspective. And I was working for Cray last fall, and we got purchased by HPE. And so I'm now working for HPE, still doing Cray work. But our corporation is, of course, being directly involved or impacted by the virus, and we're pretty much watching our finances. We're locked down from any hiring for right now.
Thank you, Kurt. Anybody else want to share a perspective as far as hiring, where you're at? Well, that's one time when I wish somebody would say, yeah, we're hiring. I can only speculate in this case, very similar to what Tim was talking about. You know, what is the world going to be as we move forward and we come to what would be considered our new normal? I would expect that, you know, the notion of a brick and mortar space might be reconsidered. You know, I think about UW Stout, for example, and we look at our budget shortfalls, and then I walk through campus, not recently, but just looking at it, it just kind of says to me, you know, we have a lot of overhead here in buildings and infrastructure, and that's reflective of a day gone by when we didn't have awesome communications capabilities and we didn't have awesome transportation capabilities. Could we do our business in a less building focused way? Oh, absolutely we could. We still need those specialized labs, and we need to have them representing reality, because that's kind of how we think. But do we need all of it? I don't know. I think that's something from a day gone by. Some other comments out here related to this. Jason chimes in. Positions IT are ones that are being filled, developers and support roles. Yeah, I wonder why. Yes, lots of good resources that are being put in the chat at this point. About the ICT program, and most of the programs that I think are represented, the ones that are very successful and are very connected with the IT aspect of the world, our formula is experience plus the credentialing opens opportunities in a career sense. And I'm very purposeful in saying that. I want you to make sure that you remember this, because I know you folks in business and industry are certainly struggling. We ride on the fortunes of the economy. We're going to need to continue to work together and just see what it looks like to have these cooperative learning experiences. They are so valuable. There's nothing like doing the real deal. And when we have those, we do distinguish ourselves, perhaps from many organizations. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, seeing some other things here as well. Deanna, my apologies. For these days, my short-term memory is poor, so whatever I said there must have been great. All right, moving on in the agenda. Right now, we're gonna switch into an area that we haven't really focused a lot on over the recent years in our ICT space, because quite honestly, we built a lot of things. We weren't recognized. Our staffing wasn't particularly well supported. But lately, we've been able to hire some really talented individuals into the faculty space. So the other aspect of being in an institution like UW Stout is scholarship, research, and being able to interpret or to share that insight with you folks and practice educationally in business and industry. Without further ado, then I would like to introduce you to Dr. Xavier Knight. Dr. Xavier Knight is finishing up his second year at UW Stout. He is, of course, a professor in the ICT space. He wants to share with you his research agenda, which is connected to artificial intelligence and how that can be ultimately implemented. So without further ado, Xavier, go ahead. This is your show. Go ahead and share your screen and do whatever you'd like in this case.
Yeah, I don't have an actual presentation this morning, but I would like to, and Thank you, Evan, for giving me a couple of minutes here on the agenda. And good morning, everyone. I'd just like to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about direction and maybe get some insight to what's happening with some of our industry partners in the way of AI technology. Artificial intelligence, as most of you know, is probably that next big thing that's happening with a lot of organizations that are trying to move their technology into digital transformation within their organizations. I started off doing a pretty broad survey of various technologies from Google to IBM to Amazon to Oracle and the different major players and what they were doing in the space. And there's a lot of activity going on there. I was looking at and continue to look at bringing in a platform, an educational platform around AI. And right now I'm focused on Google's educational platform that would help our students get some insight into using some of the building blocks related to artificial intelligence as they look at areas like enterprise systems, which is an area that I'm very much involved and interested in. So where I'm at right now is finishing up development of a survey instrument that is going to be going through our internal review process to get some insight of what's happening in various industries related to implementation. As I was doing my initial survey around the technology, what I found is that the area of AI implementation is a area that could use a lot of support. A lot of organizations are struggling with that issue right now in various ways. And what I'm trying to do with the research is really get greater insight into some of those areas where AI has failed, and also, more importantly, where AI implementations have succeeded. And get into a best practice kind of environment to bring into the enterprise technology coursework to help our students that will ultimately be helping our industry partners implement AI going forward. So what I wanted to do this morning is just get some feedback from our industry partners on where you might be at with any AI implementations, whether you've already implemented any technology in that space, or that you are going to be maybe doing some type of AI implementation in the future.
Before anybody jumps in here, James has asked a question for clarification, Xavier, out in the chat client. I think it's the last one that's in there. He is asking, I'll just read this, Xavier. Am I correct in thinking that the difference between expert systems and artificial intelligence is the idea of self-learning systems?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Artificial intelligence can be self-learning, but don't have to be implemented in that way. So a lot of the artificial intelligence systems that are being implemented today are really learning systems over time. They're not implemented in a way that they learn and respond initially. The one exception I would say to that is with IBM's Watson system, which is very much a learning environment right out of the box today. And it is an expert system in certain industries like healthcare and so forth, but it's also a learning environment that's been very instrumental in some of the findings in some of the cancer studies that have been done to date. Are there any other questions or any feedback from the industry partners as to where you might be at with any of your artificial intelligence initiatives? Okay, I'm not seeing any other posts there. Are there any other posts that you're seeing?
Hey, Jason, did you just push some keys wrong, or is that something related to AI? The J. You just never know with some of these acronyms in our world, you know?
Okay, well, I will say that going forward, you will probably, once I get through our internal review process, you will probably, I will probably be reaching out to our partners in the way of getting some insight in any implementations, hopefully successful, but any other issues that might have come up. I'm also looking for an organization that might be good for some case study work in that area. So anything along those lines, you can certainly drop an email to knightx@uw-stout.
All right. Well, Xavier, thank you very much for talking about artificial intelligence. And again, besides emailing Xavier directly, you're certainly welcome to reach out to me or Laura, and we'll make the connection. And again, our research agenda has been something that has been a long time waiting for us to be able to incorporate into what we do. And again, so much of what we do in a research sense is what we ultimately apply in our curriculum, and also apply or essentially are able to assist business and industry. These are all, anytime things like this come up, there's always a certain wave of everybody gets excited. Then it ultimately comes down to what this really means. Implementation, maybe, maybe not. So we are looking to assist in this. All right, moving down on the agenda, then we're going to look at some program information. And Sarah Anger is going to jump in. Sarah is our very, very good support from UW or UW Stout Online. She is the Adult Student Services Coordinator and all around very helpful individual when it comes to working with our students and helping us be able to make the case for our programs when tough decisions are being made. So without talking anymore, Sarah, you're up.
All right, thank you, Evan. All right, so I'm going to start out with the infographics from spring, just to give you an idea again of who our student demographics, or who our students are and what their demographics are. So just give me a second here. All right, can you see the infographic on the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so again, as most of you know, we have two populations in the ICT program. We have both the online population and the campus-based population. So not much has changed with our CI population as far as their age demographics, our gender split, the average credits they're taking a term remains pretty consistent. You can see for spring, we had 97 total students registered, and you can see the breakdown for our online population that 20 of those were completely new students, and then our current students who persisted from fall to spring. And so you can also see our student retention rate from semester to semester. And as I've shared in the past, this retention rate is looking at numbers and not student specific. So I'm not tracking if Joe Smith from fall is coming to spring. It's, okay, we had 65 students registered in fall. Of those 65, 55 are eligible to be registered for spring because 10 graduated. So that's how we're looking at that retention rate in my infographic. As far as our show rate for those students who are new for spring, you can see we have an 87% show rate. Our ethnic groups are listed there, so we have a variety of students joining us. And then as far as where our students are coming from for the online program, as you can see, it's pretty much in the Midwest, so Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Reviewing our campus-based population, we had, again, demographics are pretty similar to in the past. So we had 46 total students registered, 1 new admit, and then we did have 45 continuing students from fall. And some of our continuing students might be change of majors. So frequently in the past, we've had computer networking students change into ICT. So those numbers would be part of the current ICT population. You can also see the ethnic groups and then where those students are coming from. So for our campus students, we do branch out a little bit, and plus we have some international students who joined us. And then just an overview on the master's program. Oh, yep, go ahead.
Is now exiting.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's one thing with Teams I've noticed that's annoying. There's this pleasant voice that says when somebody from the outside leaves. So somebody just left.
All right, so for the master's program, again, the trend of the type of students we're having join the program or continue with the program has been pretty consistent, and we'll look at historical numbers in a minute. But you can see average credits per term is 5 credits, and so most of our students are taking two courses a semester. We had a total of 29 students registered for spring. And again, you can see our show rate for those students who were starting in the spring was 33%, and our retention from fall to spring was 82%. And as far as where our graduate students are coming from, we branch out again a little bit more than the online undergrad program. And so we hit the East Coast a little bit, and then we do have a student who is overseas. And let me pull up the historical. Are you able to see the historical document that I have posted?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Now can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So these are historical numbers for the undergrad program. So as you can see for the total enrollment, again, for some of you this isn't new, but you can see that we had a bubble in fall 17, and our enrollment has slowly gone down a little bit. Granted, some of the decrease is because we had large graduation classes quite recently, and so our new student enrollment is close to meeting what those graduation numbers are. But across the board, you can see that our student demographics are staying pretty consistent, and our retention from semester to semester is pretty good across the board for this CI program. Down below is also the campus-based data that I have as well. And then as far as the historical data for the master's program. One thing I wanted a note on the master's data is the number of new admits we're getting each term. So generally our spring new admit numbers is lower than our fall. But as you can see, our spring admit numbers have dropped a bit more. So our focus is clearly on recruitment and figuring out how to reach those people who are in industry and what they need and what they're looking for. And as Laura shared in her presentation, working with industry partners to try and figure out how to market to those particular populations. Just gonna check my notes here. Currently for fall term, some good news for spring and summer, we have 27 total graduates for the undergrad program, and we have an expected 10 graduates for the master's program. And then as far as numbers for our fall, for our new admits for the undergrad online program, we are trending similar to our period of time at this time last year. So currently we have 8 new admits for fall, which is similar to what we had last year. And as far as the graduate program, we're a little bit behind, and that could be because of our adult population. They have lots going on. Could be job loss, student or kids at home. All of that kind of factors into it. And again, that's not just for undergrad ICT program or graduate program. That's kind of across the board for all programs at Stout, that numbers are a little bit slower than in the past. And again, that's due to COVID. Any questions? Can check the chat here.
Well, you're checking the chat. I just want to make a couple comments of things that I've observed. Well, first of all, something I just observed. This is a concrete. I know this. When we were told back in March that we were not going to be on campus anymore, we have a 3-cycle annual marketing process that we use for not only for the MS and the BS-ICT, but also for DMT. We basically were told by our marketing folks that they're pulling the plug, or at least postponing it, I should say, for a time, just due to the fact that anything that we try to put out there at this point would be white noise related to what really is being focused on in the various mediums that our marketing messages would have gone. So I actually have a meeting with marketing next week just to see what does it look like to start this up again. I know because I, like you folks, have consumed far more streaming media through my TV than I'd ever like to admit. I've seen the online organizations around the country aren't waiting around. They are hitting it hard. They're basically saying, hey, we can do this, no big deal. And they're right. I mean, the organizations that are doing fully online are not being disruptive, and that's not speaking to quality in any of those. But that's something we're dealing with, and I'm hoping we can get back out there and start competing as well. It's nice to hear, Sarah, based on your new admit stats, that we're holding par, and that's without marketing. Which is good. I mean, I've always felt that we need to get the message out to a broader audience. We're still kind of hanging out in the demographic of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois, and it's because we're very known in this area, and that's fine. But our marketing has been targeting outside of those areas, hitting major markets on the East Coast and West Coast, both. Yeah, so that is the story where we're at right now. Yeah, and the one thing that's been interesting in my 3 years as program director is we've graduated a lot of students. It's like we've had, even in this year, and Sarah, you can verify this, I'd say we've had in the number of between 30 and 40 new students come into the ICT program. That's great. That's fantastic. We've also graduated as much or more than that this year, and it's been that way, and that's good. We want graduates, and those people that are in the program, especially our online non-trad students, want to. That's their goal. And I wonder how much a good economy has impacted our numbers as well. I mean, right now we're at a different time. I'm kind of wondering, is the economy going to be slow to uptick? And is this going to be the time where we end up getting a bunch of new students coming in because they're finding themselves laid off and they don't quite have the credentials to be able to move into the next position? Employers in this case, you know, they've been, I would say, probably, you know, doing their darndest to be able to hire good talent because they've needed it. Now it's maybe the table is turned a little bit where they can be a little more selective. So that could end up being for our business, it could be ending up being a good thing. So we could see a rush that comes in. But again, we're still in the midst of, you know, the lockdown and limitation as to what people can actually do. And, you know, like most people, we're looking for that day when the doors fly open and we can actually get back to whatever life is going to look like now. All right, enough talking by me. I tried to not violate my rule of not overstating things because we have an advisory board. So advisory board members, what are your thoughts relative to things you've heard related to our program numbers right now? Well, okay. You're not all multitasking right now, are you? You wouldn't tell me if you were. All right. Well, looking at our agenda right now, this is, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, and I don't like to meet for the sake of meeting. So I think what I'll do is make the best choice right here.
Hey, Evan?
Oh, yeah, please, go ahead.
It's Tim, and I, probably to the consternation of others, you and several of your colleagues have referred to a recent Board of Regents announcement. Is that public knowledge or is that within the university system, or can you share that?
Chris, you're on the faculty senate. You know our governance rules. I've got that document here. Can we do that? Can we show that?
You think I know the governance rules?
Okay, well, actually, James already let the cat out of the bag, so we can point the finger toward James when somebody comes back.
I was going to say, I think it's public, so I
posted earlier in the chat that there's an article from Madison newspaper that talks about Ray Cross's thoughts about moving forward, and he's the president of the UW system.
That's the article. I think Evan's referring to the notes that came out of the Board of Regents meeting.
That is correct. Let me just take a quick peek at this document myself because I read it this morning, Tim, and it's interesting reading. Let's see.
Well, and you know, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, but I guess one of my thoughts was, and I think somebody noted in the comments, the chat. Some of the focus has been on competition externally. Is there also a look at competition internally within the system if they are going to kind of recalibrate who's doing what or not duplicating effort? Are you also thinking about, and do you have to think about the core curriculum of this of yours and where else it exists within the system, and how you're either unique or unusual in that respect, and certainly the communities that you service with that education. So if there's granted, it's the UW and the Madison campus is really big and all that kind of stuff, but If there's something at UW Stout that either doesn't exist or doesn't exist as well elsewhere, isn't that your primary focus of competition internally within the system?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the memo that came out, the executive summary that came out today, and matter of fact, I'm going to throw it up on my screen. And again, if somebody is going to want to get in trouble, I guess it'd be for the sake of understanding. So when you take a look at this document, there's a number of things that you see in it that do point to how do we not repeat effort in an organization that does repeat efforts and that we are internally competitive. So just some of the main points right here, like refining its missions, and it would be focused on the comprehensive, and we get lumped into that. UW-Madison and UW-Milwaukee are kind of in a league of their own. They are considered the Division I research institutions, which, you know, University of Minnesota, any of the big schools here that are noteworthy. They're basically saying that we're going to need to bring some things together. We're going to need to do prioritizing and evaluating of academic and administrative programs. So we're saying that each organization perhaps shows their uniqueness. We're going to have to do that pretty quickly. Timeline is like right now. And again, that's why I might have mentioned earlier, I think this is very reactive. And it's reactive because we're running out of money, or the money is gone, or we now owe money. So it's like this big aha moment. The administration stuff we have, this is another major point in this document. They look at, as I read through this, they look at there's too many variations of the same systems that are involved. Like even at our campus, because I've had a spot in my heart for the CRM systems, these enterprise systems. When we finally got Salesforce in our organization, it was after a vetting process and an analysis on the front end that identified around a dozen different CRM systems that were already in place. And so that kind of thing. And I mean, any business that is doing that is probably going to be in trouble eventually, and we're definitely there at this point. So, and that also extends to our IT services, which, boy, I'm concerned about this one because UW system they've already kind of started to push in the direction of making decisions for the system that really disrupt our operations here and our uniqueness. And I expect that's probably happening across the board with all of the UW schools. Do we need to get some of those things together? Yeah. When I think about our shared services, like in financial management, what a freaking time sink that is. Or money, time. It is just ridiculous the things that we go through to be able to get money spent to get services. It is a nightmare. Can UW system help this? Man, I don't know. I think in some cases they are part of the problem. I think back to what our former chancellor, who has passed on, Charles Sorensen, wanted to do that got him a no confidence vote, was to adopt the Michigan University system model of having every campus be independent and make their appeal to the legislature to get funding versus having a large system operation. Sounding pretty good now, at least in some levels. Here's another one. This is one that really does impact us, and it'll be, when I saw this morning, I kind of said, huh. You know, a unified strategic online education delivery model. We have been approached by UW Extended Campus for quite a while. And our campus basically said no to them in some levels because it was duplication once again. It's like, for example, the ICT program is something I said, listen, why do we want to join this bunch when we are already doing this? And we, quite honestly, had better numbers than they did. Well, they're going to the way this looks is they're going to get their time in the sun. And so MS-ICT, BS-ICT, will it exist in a year? The honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know if any of our online programs would exist unless they're so distinctly unique that it's like, yeah, we got to have that in the mix. Does that upset me? No, I think we've been a little bit fat as a system for quite a while. What does bother me a little bit is these people at UW Extended Campus made no good impressions with us as far as how they were actually spinning what they were proposing. Quite honestly, they're predatory. Quite honestly, they threw organizations that were doing their bidding right under the bus. I mean, they openly said, hey, ICT program, we'll take you in, even though UW Milwaukee was doing this at the same time. That kind of rubbed me wrong, and I think a lot of my colleagues wrong. Now, do they have the resources that we really could use to do this well? They do. And that excites me. I'm just, I don't know. Change is difficult and loss is painful, but that's coming. What else can we say here too? So the online stuff, it was interesting what they had to say about the online stuff. A lot of this has to do, if you take a look at that, with a quality issue that we recognize that we have had. We've had inconsistency from course to course in the quality. There are people that are very, very good in the online teaching and learning space, and we have a lot of them in our program. We do have several vendors of other courses around campus who are not very good at this. And we do have this, we loved it, we hate it, feedback that we get from our students based on quality, inconsistency, and a general lack of considering the value of an online teaching and learning space. That is a struggle we've had as a university. There's definitely no doubt about that. And this is the time to change that because our system is saying you must change it. And because I think there's people here that know that we can do a better job. We can do a better job, even though our students are still successful. But again, the difference between creating a learning environment and the motivation of the student, they're not the same. When they all come together, it's awesome. So anyways, yeah, look at some of these timelines here are just crazy. Next July. Wait, now is that? No, this July. Wow, okay. So anyways, a lot of changes from the foundational business aspects to our online delivery. And yes, the on-campus, every on-campus program is going to be looked at, and it's going to be determined, and we're going to have to make the decision. We can't drag our feet on this any longer. And this is my opinion here. We've had 15 years worth of our organization, the state of Wisconsin, saying money's getting cut back, money's getting cut back, money's getting cut back. And we haven't responded to it in what I would consider to be a strategic approach to live within our means. Instead, it's been, let's do more with less. And so that just keeps being the strategy. I'll give a specific example. Because of what we knew we had as a budget shortfall, we reorganized in our college. How did we do that? Well, we gave more. Well, we gave more to the same people that are already doing a lot. And we say that works. And then we end up with weird bedfellows. Our department, for example, is going to be now the Communication Technologies and Communication Studies. The word communication is our commonality. On the outside looking in. I don't know, this is the document, and I guess if you folks want to chime in or talk about this or ask for some clarification, please do. I mean, really, the big answer that we've had these days, we're operating under we don't know. You asked the chancellor a specific question. Because she is the chancellor, she's not going to be able to give you an answer because right now she does not know. We are waiting. We are planning right now plan A, which is business as usual, plan B, which is what we're doing right now, and plan C, which is a hybrid model. We don't know which one it's going to be. Isn't that crazy? It is the reality, and I want to say in some levels it's been exciting because it's kind of challenging me personally to engage in some problem solving. And I think human beings like to do that kind of thing. We are learning machines. We like to adapt. Most of us, I think, like to adapt. If you're in this environment, you certainly do. But yeah.
Kevin?
Yes, please.
This is Cami, just going through the chats. Dr. Schultz, Deanna Schultz, asked if she could share some thoughts as an online program PD.
Of course, Deanna, go ahead.
Thanks, Evan. I don't know if you listened to the Board of Regents meeting when the Red Cross presented this proposal, but I listened to it. So you are correct in terms of the timeline. It's very short because it's an aggressive timeline to address the financial issues. So it's some things that were already in place, like looking at programs and which ones are critical and making some decisions. So it's kind of speeding up that process, as well as they're streamlining administrative functions more centralized. So most of this is really centralizing things under UW system. And the one about the online education delivery model, I would agree that there's room for us to kind of have some consistency. We've had those conversations in our department when we deliver online programs. The thing that to me, and you touched on this, that was a little disconcerting, I will say, is the recommendation that the UW designate the collaborative model as a default approach for all new online and non-degree programs. So that's the extended campus model, like you mentioned, that like the cybersecurity, right? Stout was delivering a program, and you'd made changes and had that cybersecurity, national recognition for that, and then extended campus came in and did this collaborative model, so multiple campuses have courses in that. And so that to me is a little disconcerting. And part of me, where my head went as a program director, I hope, my program is very unique in the system. So, and he did say that doesn't preclude a campus from having its own online program. So, and there will be lots of governance involvement in this as well, right across it. So I appreciated that. But if it continue to expand on programs that multiple campuses teach some courses, and it's so how do we have benefactors who support our programs? Who do they give to? The system? Because then the program, so there's some just things like that came to mind that I thought, this is going to be interesting. So that one was a little yeah, as I said, disconcerting. So it'll be interesting to see how they roll this out. When he first described these things, I was taken aback, and then as he continued and questions were asked by the regents, he continued to repeat there needs to be a lot of involvement with governance. And so I think we will have lots of opportunity to weigh in on this. And you're right, we do have to make changes, and we really do need to look at things differently. And so we're going to have to be open to change and adapt, and how we do that and be thoughtful about it. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that within our shared governance system. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Deanna. I appreciate you sharing that. James, you had a rather long post. Did you want to jump in and spin something?
Sure, I just have to turn my microphone back on. One of the things that I think is a pivotal moment in higher education is that if we end up being much more highly leveraged online, there could be a collapse, especially in the private institutions, but then also in the smaller public institutions of, are they actually creating something that's different than what the largest institutions can do? Because the largest institutions will have economies of scale for developing common core courses, English, math, psychology courses, etc. I think the opportunity for ICT is in developing specific niches that solve specific industry problems. So this is one of the reasons why I think Laura was talking earlier that she doesn't want to name our program and copy our program to things that are already existing out there, because those could quickly be folded down into the largest providers, just saying, this is the provider of this program. So I think that there are great opportunities. I think that this current COVID-19 environment has demonstrated that there are a lot of businesses that are suffering because they do not know how to adapt to technology. They do not know how to adapt to online delivery and online customer support. So, this, even though as bad as it is right now, I think that there are opportunities for our programs and for our students and our graduates.
Thank you, James. Anybody else got some burning thoughts they'd like to share? This is actually really good conversation for us. So please continue. Anybody else?
I'll just joke that you have to unmute your microphone for us to hear you.
Oh, goodness. Yes. And it's okay to smile and laugh a little bit as well. These things get pretty darn serious, but you can still smile. Something that I like just to interject, after I read, one of the things that I've essentially anchored myself in at the university in, as far as my area of interest in curriculum, is the area of information technologies, of course, and specifically in enterprise systems. And specifically for systems development lifecycle processes, how do these systems come about? It kind of freaked me out a little bit when I saw the short time frame, and where, say, for example, all the comprehensive universities are suddenly now using a common, wonderful enterprise system to deal with all their financial, administrative, and HR, and all the different processes they would be. And I'm thinking, this organization is giant. You want to turn around and have an implementation of something in a 1-year time frame or less? And it was kind of funny. Some of the funny as in, boy, that's sad funny. In that verbiage of that document spoke to, we need to do this quickly, and then we'll recognize that improvements will come as time passes. Basically what that means is, we're going to throw all this together real fast. It's not going to work really good. You're going to be frustrated, and we'll fix it over the next decade, which is kind of how we've operated for a long time. And the disruption, I'm wondering, what resources are we suddenly going to have to be able to do such a major implementation of information systems and consolidation of all the uniqueness across campuses? And it's like, holy, I was going to say something, but it was like, man, really? I mean, let's go look at the literature and show the percentage of failed information systems implementations because of poor planning or poor documentation, right, Cami Peterson?
I was trying to search for the emoji icon where it was clapping, but I'll just come on and say yes.
There is, Deanna said something in here. President Cross did say these are thoughts of an outgoing systems president. Isn't that something? We've had more interim people lately that are like heading for the door. And that's another thing that's going to happen in this case. People are going to, just so you folks in our advisory boards know, outside of the university is working at, like, we're at such a, we are stretched. Every unit on campus and probably across the UW system is stretched to the point of breaking. There's a level where people are starting to lose their passion for what they're doing. I can raise my hand and say in here, this has become, it's become at times an intolerable place to be. It's like, I think about what's my true desired investment of my life. Yeah, I'm starting to ask the question, is like, maybe it isn't here. Maybe it isn't here. So the pressures of that, with all these reactionary changes, are we going to break the thing? And I'm not a negative person, but wow. Anyways, Anybody else got any thoughts about this? Yeah, and that's, Cammie, you're right. That's really concerning because these organizations are run by people, supporting people, and all these people that are coming up that want to launch into careers. That's the thing. I think that's the thing that's saddest for me, is that, yeah, we got some problems here. Are we too late to be able to serve people yet? That's why we exist. That's why the state government has supported us, why they're still willing to support us. Though that relationship is, I don't know, it's a different time, folks. My dad used to tell me, when I was 18, you know, what is an 18-year-old? What can an 18-year-old learn from their parents? Probably not a lot until they become parents and then grandparents. You know, my dad always said that the UW system and education and all the things that valued education was a great thing and a privilege. And he basically said, we didn't have that opportunity. And so we went through it, I went through it, and it was great to get all the, you know, to be able to go to school and manage to get a C and party a lot and stuff like that. But eventually it became valuable. But boy, the way it was versus the way it is now, it's a very, very different environment. And our governance system has a lot to do with it. And I don't mean the system itself, but the people who are making choices. People are making choices on what they value. And quite honestly, we're not really high up there. We get a lot of lip service, but we're not very high. And that's sad, because I think we really work hard to be relevant so we get a 98% employment for our students. So anyways, okay. I think unless anybody else has got a compelling thought they'd like to share here, and we're certainly willing to do that. If we don't have that, I think what I'll do is just say we're going to pull the plug. We're a little bit early, but that's okay. People got other stuff to do, I'm sure. Plus lunch. Let's have a nice lunch, long lunch. 12:30. Yeah, Mark, good comment there. That's another thing too. Nobody wants to work in. It was interesting. Last week I was talking to the chancellor about. So you knew about UW Stout in the state of Wisconsin, right? And you chose to come here, right? And she basically said, yeah, we used to, out west, we hired all kinds of people from Wisconsin leaving. So I'm still wondering, is she a little bit of a masochist or what? I'm glad she's here. I mean, the challenge, I think, is appealing. But yeah, that's another thing, too. We've had struggles for years, a long time, to be able to hire qualified people to come in here. Not to mention, we compete with business and industry. And in business and industry, a lot of the people that we ultimately would like to hire don't have the degrees that make it appropriate for higher education, which is a kind of a paradox, if you will. Yeah, right, Chris, she does. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. If there's anybody else who would like to chime in right now and continue this conversation, wonderful, please do. Otherwise, we're gonna reconvene. I'd say probably about 12:15, 20 after, in that time, if you could gather back here at that point. I'm going to be turning control over to our leadership team, our student leadership, for our capstone experiences. And that is the good news in this particular meeting. They've done some really good work, and I think without spoiling this thing, I hope you can stick around and participate with us. So any other thoughts or comments before we take a nice long lunch break in advance of our capstone presentations?